Alright guys, so today we're going to talk about cloud formations and the different types of clouds and how we can identify them. So before we can do any of that, we need to discuss what clouds are and how they form. So a cloud is basically just water droplets or water vapor that has cooled as it rises in the atmosphere, because we know the higher in the atmosphere you go, the cooler the atmosphere is. So as water vapor is evaporating and rising, eventually it's going to cool down and turn back into a liquid or maybe even an ice crystal. And when that happens, you get a cloud. So you can't get any clouds without the water cycle. So no matter what kind of cloud there is, it's water vapor that's had rose up into the atmosphere, cooled off, and then formed some sort of cloud. So my question to you that you should answer like in the side notes of your notes is, what type of heat transfer has to occur for clouds to form? So if you look at this diagram to help you answer that question, you'll notice that we have my sun here in the top left of the diagram, and it's providing some radiant energy onto the sea and the ground. And these warm arrows are pointing upward towards the clouds. And it says warm air rises and cools and condenses to form clouds. The key word there is that warm air rises, which should give you an indicator that this is a heat transfer of convection, where warm gases or liquids rise and cool gases and liquids sink. So just to quickly review the water cycle, we need to focus on the fact that the first step is radiation from the sun. We can't get the water cycle without radiation and energy from the sun. Once we get that, we get evaporation and transpiration, which comes from evaporation coming off of our trees. And in both instances, we're going to get condensation, where the evaporation, the water vapor, or water in a gas state, is now cooling and condensing to form a cloud. Eventually, that cloud gets so heavy that it's going to precipitate with snow, sleets, hail, and so forth, and falls back down to the ground. And we get that runoff either on the surface or even underground. And eventually, it's going to go into a large collection of water like the ocean or a large lake, and we call that accumulation. And it keeps going over and over again, renewing our water. So three main types of clouds that you should know based on their shape are cirrus, cumulus, and stratus. So you notice in your notes you're going to have like a little chart. You're going to want to draw a picture of the cloud and write a little definition of how to identify that cloud. So the first cloud type is the Toy Story cloud, the cumulus cloud. So cumulus means heaps or mass. They look like fluffy cotton balls in the air, and they usually have a flatter bottom. And these clouds are usually white. If you see one that starts to turn a bit gray, that means it could be getting pretty thick and heavy and might precipitate. So cumulus clouds are fat-based, billowing clouds with vertical or doming tops, so like the Toy Story cloud. And often the tops have a cauliflower-like shape or appearance. These clouds are most prominent in our summer months because these clouds form when air is forced up rapidly, meaning some cool air probably pushed in and pushed that warm air up really fast, which doesn't happen unless there's warm air to begin with, so you're going to need those summer months. The next cloud type is the stratus cloud. So stratus means spread out, usually covers most of the sky, and stratus clouds can produce some sort of precipitation like some rain, drizzle, or snow. So in the picture you have the top view of a stratus cloud, so you can tell it definitely blankets a huge area of the sky. So if you were below that, you wouldn't see the sun, it would just be kind of gray. So stratus clouds are thin, sheet-like clouds. They are layered with some rippling, and they cover large portions of sky, and you're going to usually see them in that gray color. And these clouds form when air is forced up very slowly. So you notice that they're not that high. So looking in the picture, you can kind of see they're a little bit ripply. They're definitely gray, and they take up a large portion of the sky. And they can be sheet-like and layered if you were to go way, way, way far away from them to see them. The last cloud shape is the cirrus cloud, which is this wispy, feathery, horsetail-like, maybe even people like to say they look like brushstrokes in the sky. These clouds form at very high levels of our atmosphere and are usually made of ice crystals. So Cirrus clouds are identified based on their feathery-like appearance. They're the highest forming cloud. They usually form at heights of 30,000 feet or more, and they are formed by the ice crystals. When you see a cirrus cloud in the sky, you usually see them in the morning, and it indicates pretty fair weather, but it also can tell you the direction that wind is blowing based on where the tails are like moving. So the coolest cloud, in my opinion, is the cumulonimbus cloud. If you remember that those three cloud shapes, cumulus was the first one we discussed, meaning it's big cotton ball shape. This is like taking the cotton ball and putting it on steroids. It's huge. And instead of just a little puffy, innocent cotton ball rabbit, now it's like a really angry rabbit that's ginormous and going to beat up the earth with its thunderstorms. So a cumulonimbus cloud is a giant storm cloud that is super tall, and while our clouds are all based on like different layers of the atmosphere and where they form, cumulonimbus clouds can like go through all those layers. So they're very tall, towering clouds. They kind of look anvil-like, where cumulus look like a puffy dome. Anvils like in like the Wile E. Coyote or whatever, the big things that fall from the sky and smush him. So these clouds usually indicate a huge thunderstorm coming, or is already coming, or even a blizzard or some hail. Nimbus, if you see the word nimbus, means that it is raining. So cumulonimbus is a big, puffy, large rain cloud. So how do thunderstorms form? Well, thunderstorms form when warm, moist air rises really quickly. So in this diagram, you're going to see on the bottom left here, it says cold air and an arrow pointing towards the right, and warm air with the arrows rising. So what's happening here is the area had mostly warm air, and a big cold air mass is pushing into the area. And when that happens, we know that cold air is more dense than warm air, so it's going to stick to the ground and it's going to push that warm air up, because warm air is less dense than cold air. So as it's pushing the warm air up, it's going up really, really fast. And like we said, because of the water cycle and water vapor going up in the atmosphere, it's going to cool off really fast too. So it forms this giant cumulonimbus cloud. So we know the three different shapes: cumulus, white and puffy; stratus, big gray sheet-like clouds that cover the sky; and cirrus clouds, which are wispy, feathery clouds. So those are three cloud shapes. We also classify them based on the height that clouds form. So the three categories of cloud heights are: high clouds are called cirro, so you're going to put cirro in front. Middle clouds are called alto clouds, so you're going to put alto in front of the shape name. And low clouds are called strato clouds, and you're going to put strato in front of the shape name. So we have three shape names: cumulus, stratus, and cirrus. You now can put these cloud categories based on height in front of it. So you can put alto cumulus, alto stratus in front, and it tells you what height it formed at and the shape. So cirro are high forming clouds. They form from 7 to 18 kilometers. It's very, very cold, 25 degrees Celsius, and most of them are made of ice crystals. So cirro stratus means a high forming cloud that is stratus in shape. These are high forming wispy clouds that give the sky a very milky-like appearance, and you can see the sun and moon through them, and you usually see a halo around the sun or the moon. Cirrocumulus is a high-forming cumulus-shaped cloud. So these are delicate puff-shaped clouds. You can see these in bands or ripples across the sky, and you usually see these in the summer, and they're kind of the least common type of cloud you're going to see. Alto are middle-forming clouds. So these clouds usually form from a gradual lifting of air in the advance of a cold front. So it's slow, warm, rising air. It forms from 2 to 7 kilometers, 0 to 25 degrees Celsius. It can be composed of both water and ice crystals. If you see an alto cumulus cloud on a warm and humid summer morning, it usually means you're going to have thunderstorms in the afternoon. So alto stratus means middle forming sheet-like gray clouds. So when you look at this picture, you can see that this cloud has lots of ripples, but it also, like a stratus cloud, covers the entire sky. So alto means this stratus cloud is forming in the middle layer. Alto cumulus means a middle forming cloud with a cumulus shape. So if you look at this one, it's cumulus shaped clouds that are forming in the middle layer. And they still look a bit puffy, but they're more ripply and they still take up a lot of space in the sky. Strato are low forming clouds. So these are 0 to 4 kilometers from the surface of the Earth. It's greater than 5 degrees Celsius and mostly composed of water. So you have your general stratus cloud, which is that dense, dark, uniform gray cloud, which usually brings rain. You also have a nimbostratus cloud. And if it's a nimbostratus cloud, you're definitely getting some sort of precipitation because nimbo equals rain. So whenever you put nimbo in front of something, it means some sort of rain cloud. And then you have the stratocumulus, so a low-forming cumulus cloud. These are groups of dense, puffy white clouds that cover the sky. So like a stratus cloud, you notice it covers most of the sky, but it also has kind of those puffy appearance like a cumulus cloud, so we put them together in stratocumulus. You also have the cumulus cloud, which also is a low-forming cloud. So if you just see cumulus clouds, that's also a low-forming cloud. We just don't put strato in front of it. So fog is just basically a cloud that has formed on the ground. So it's a big stratus cloud that didn't get to make it up into the atmosphere. So what's happening there is water vapor has condensed almost on like instantly up like right above the Earth's surface, and you have this cloud that you can walk through that's on the ground. So that's basically fog. Fog is just a cloud on the ground, so when you walk through it, you can feel the mist on your arms and skin. So for your homework after these notes, you're going to try your best to identify the different types of clouds based on the altitude at which they're forming and their appearance. So remember, if it's a high forming cloud, you should probably have cirro in front of it. If it's a middle forming cloud, you should probably have alto in front of it. And if it's a low forming cloud, you should probably have strato in front of it, unless it's just a plain old cumulus cloud. And then we have that one very special cloud that goes through all the layers because it's very tall. So do your best based on what shape and height that these clouds are like forming at to identify the different cloud types. You can just number 1 through 10 in your notes or on a piece of paper, and then after warm-ups we'll discuss what you guys decided.